Hey guys, Dan here with this week's TV news and reviews. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining. So instead of the actual news portion of the show this week, we're just going to talk about one thing, and that's the Golden Globe nominations that came out just a couple days ago. So we're going to get to that, and we have 5 reviews for you this week. The new M. Night Shyamalan show, which is airing on Apple Plus TV, that is called Servant. A Harley Quinn animated series on DC Universe, 2 family Christmas shows, like dysfunctional families. One is on Netflix starring Dennis Quaid, and the other is on Fox starring Dennis Leary. And then just to sort of go back in time a little bit to a show that premiered before I started doing the review show, and that is 4 Weddings and a Funeral on Hulu. So some interesting stuff to tackle, but let's start with the Golden Globe nomination. So first of all, I usually, I don't know, I don't necessarily agree or disagree with a lot of their nominations, but the one thing I find is that they get a little static with everything. If they are in love with one actor or actress or show, it's just every year it gets nominated every time, so that gets a little stale. But the thing that struck me the most, and we'll go over, more specifics on the nominations, but what struck me the most was there is not one single broadcast network show nominated for anything. This Is Us didn't get any nominations. The Good Place didn't get any nominations. Blackish, those are 3 shows that typically, above all else, between the Netflix and Hulu and HBO and all of that, they usually are the shows that kind of, bleed through, even if it's just, an acting nomination for Ted Danson or Anthony Anderson or Sterling K. Brown, but nothing. There are no broadcast network shows on the list, which it just blows my mind. I think we're sort of at a time now where it's like, I don't know, broadcast networks are uncool, which is a bummer, because I agree there's a lot of great stuff on cable. There's certainly a lot of great stuff on streaming. I'm a huge fan of Mrs. Maisel and a lot of those shows, but honest to God, I think it's really sad that shows that are of a really good quality just are getting passed over because, network TV's dead and we don't care about that. And I just think it's a bummer. So let's go over what we've got. I guess we'll start with the drama stuff. So for best TV series drama, they have Big Little Lies on HBO, which I watched a little bit of the first season of. I didn't see the second season, but I heard it was terrible. So, but again, if they like something, they'll just keep nominating it. The Crown on Netflix, don't watch that, but I hear it's amazing. Actually, I don't watch really any of these. Killing Eve, I hear that's amazing. The Morning Show, I do watch, and I have been keeping up with. I've seen the 8 episodes that are up right now. I think there's 2 more to go. And I'm definitely into it. I don't know if it's one of the best dramas of the year, but and then Succession on HBO, which I don't really know much about. And then for the comedy side, where do we have that, I wonder? Don't know. Here we go. So, again, all streaming and HBO. Barry, which is HBO. Fleabag on Amazon. Excellent, excellent show. The Kominsky Method, I still haven't watched on Netflix. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. The 3rd season just dropped of that, so I haven't gotten to see that yet, but I love the show in general, so I'm sure the 3rd season is good. And then The Politician on Netflix, which I reviewed here a few weeks ago. I liked it a lot. Is it, among the best out there? I don't know. But the Golden Globes loves Ryan Murphy, so of course they're gonna, anything he does, they're gonna, go with. So, okay. And then for performances in dramas, you've got both Jennifer Aniston and Reese up for The Morning Show. You've got Olivia Colman for The Crown, Nicole Kidman for Big Little Lies, and then Jodie Comer for Killing Eve. All sort of, again, just standard, yep, okay, that all makes sense. And then actor in a TV series, Brian Cox in Succession. Again, I don't really know much about that. Kit Harington, Game of Thrones. Now, this is the only real nomination for Game of Thrones, which is, I thought, kind of odd, because it was the last season. People seem to really enjoy the last season, so I don't know why it didn't get nominated for like best drama. But Rami Malek for Mr. Robot again last season for that. Tobias Menzies from The Crown, and then Billy Porter from Pose. He's been all over the place. So again, all non network shows. And then for the musical or comedy actress, you've got Christina Applegate in Dead to Me, which I have yet to watch, but I hear it's great, and I love her in like everything, so I'm sure it's good. Rachel Brosnahan from Mrs. Maisel again. Kirsten Dunst, which I don't know what this is, on Becoming a God in Central Florida. I don't know what that is, but it's either like Showtime or Netflix or HBO or something. Natasha Lyonne and Russian Doll, which I hear is great. And then Phoebe Waller-Bridge for Fleabag. I imagine she'll probably win that. And then for Best Performance by an Actor, Michael Douglas in The Kominsky Method, Bill Hader in Barry, Ben Platt in The Politician, Rami Youssef in Rami, which I don't really know what that is. And then Paul Rudd, that was kind of a surprise, with Living With Yourself, which there's another one I just reviewed, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or something on here. I thought he did a great job in it, but I'm sorry, for The Good Place to be in its last season and not get a nomination for Best Comedy or for Ted Danson, I think is such a shame. But again, it shows where we're going here. And then there's Best Limited Series or Motion Picture on Television. I didn't really see any of these except for Unbelievable, which was amazing. I reviewed that on like my first or second show. I think it was my very first review show. I watched the whole thing, and it was great. Loved it. And they're up for a bunch of acting awards, too. Merritt Wever, Caitlin Dever, and Toni Collette are all nominated for Unbelievable. So that'd be cool if that won. But everything else that's nominated is like Chernobyl, Fosse Verdon, Catch-22, The Act, Catherine the Great. I didn't really see any of those, so I can't speak to that. But, and then again, supporting is all the same type of shows. Andrew Scott for Fleabag as the hot priest, Henry Winkler and Barry, Alan Arkin in The Kominsky Method. Meryl Streep is apparently in season 2 of Big Little Lies. I didn't even know that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's like they're almost purposely not choosing broadcast shows. Like, I'm sorry, but This Is Us is a great show. The Good Place is a great show. Even something like, Brooklyn Nine-Nine was an industry darling when it first premiered, and I don't know, for my money, it's still one of the best shows on television, Andre Braugher could be nominated. It used to be nominated for Best Show at the Emmys and the Golden Globes. Most of that is gone. Even the Emmy list just a few months ago was almost all of these shows. Saturday Night Live got some nominations for NBC, but the Emmys is all TV, so they have writing categories and variety categories and reality shows and stuff. The Globes doesn't have that. They don't even have a writing category, so it's basically just Best Show and the acting nomination. So okay. But still, there's a lot of good shows out there that I think are not being covered by the Globes because they're like, oh, well, forget it. Streaming's the new thing. Streaming's where it's at. Like, I'm almost surprised The Mandalorian didn't get, Best Drama nomination or something. I mean, even some of the new shows, like Emergence is a really good show. Nothing. I don't know. I think they could do what the Emmys has done, which is opened up the categories a little bit to make it, 7 or 8 nominations for each category. Because I think that makes sense. I mean, we're at, I can't even say peak TV because it's only going to get, kind of worse from here. But, there's so much going on, between streaming, cable, and broadcast that it makes sense that they would have, opened it up to like, okay, let's do 8 nominees or whatever. But, I don't know. I mean, the Globes are fun to watch, and it's obviously like an achievement to be like, hey, I won a Golden Globe. But, if you look over the last few years of those where it's like, oh, we nominated The Tourist, just because we wanted Johnny Depp and Angelina Jolie to show up at the award show, or when they nominated The Martian for Best Comedy. I mean, yeah, it had a couple of jokes, but, like, it's not a comedy. Same with like Transparent, though. I mean, Transparent's obviously a drama. Them and the Emmys always putting it in the comedy categories. So I don't know, but I think when you completely shut out the broadcast networks, I think it's showing a little favoritism. I mean, are these shows that much better than what's on broadcast? I don't think so. I mean, the morning show is good. Don't get me wrong, but I gave it a B or B minus when I did the Apple TV review, and I mean it's maybe gotten a little bit better. It's certainly interesting. I mean, I enjoy watching the episodes. I'm not bored with it, but would I rank it among the best dramas of the year? I would not. And there again, it's like, it's so high profile, the Globe's probably like, well, we need to nominate this, and then we'll get Jen Aniston and Reese to show up at the awards, and it'll be great, and whatever. And it's like, okay, but I just find it very unfortunate, let's say, that they're really sort of leaving broadcast in the dust. I think it's a shame, because I think there's a lot of good shows on, I mean, there's a lot of crap on broadcast too, but, there's a lot of crap on Netflix. So, yeah, it's a real bummer. So that's kind of my piece about that. We can move on to the reviews, but those are the nominations. We'll see what happens in January. I'm excited to see Ricky Gervais hosting again. I kind of think, I don't know, the first couple times he hosted it was great, and then the last, I forget if he's hosted 3 or 4 times, but the last like 1 or 2 times he hosted, it was more just like, let's say things to be shocking and rude and mean. And I get that like mean is his brand, but the jokes he was telling like weren't clever. I don't know, like the first couple times he hosted, I remembered him, making fun of The Tourist and making fun of Mel Gibson, and I don't know, the last couple times I just remembered thinking like, that's not like a clever joke, that's just mean. And you can be mean. I mean, I think we all sort of like to, when, A-listers poke fun at each other or whatever, but they just weren't cleverly written. So hopefully he steps it up from the last time he hosted a few years ago. I think it was Seth Meyers that hosted last year, or maybe that was the Emmys. I get so confused anymore about who's hosting what show. I know the Oscars didn't have a host last year. Was last year, actually Golden Globes last year might have been Sandra Oh and Andy Samberg. They were okay. They kept the show moving, but not, I wouldn't say it was like, fall down funny, but... Alright, well, so let's move into the review portion here of the show, and talk about Servant, which is the new M. Night Shyamalan show. This is the first new show on Apple Plus TV since the launch, about a month ago, and it premiered right around Thanksgiving, and they did with this what they've done with most of their shows so far. They put up the first 3 episodes, and then they're going to be adding 1 a week. I'm not exactly sure how many episodes total are in this season. It's either 8 or 10. I don't know, but they did with this what they did with most of their other high-profile shows, and renewed it for season 2 before season 1 even began. So, people that start watching it aren't going to be, like, wondering if it's going to end in a cliffhanger or whatever. They've already reviewed, The Morning Show and C, and I think Dickinson and For All Mankind as well, have all been renewed for a second season before they even premiered. Same thing here. And I will say, with a lot of the reviews I do here on the show, I only watch the first episode because it's all I have time for, or sometimes it's all that's available if it's like a broadcast show. But most of these are only half-hour shows, except for 4 Weddings and a Funeral. So I actually had enough time to watch the first 2 episodes of all of these shows that we're going to talk about today. So, I have a pretty good grasp on the show because of that. So, basically, the plot of Servant is a woman who is played by the gal from 6 Feet Under. What's her name? Lauren Ambrose, who is a new mother whose child died very early in infancy. She became completely catatonic. She didn't know what to do. So they got this sort of like robot doll. Is it called like a real Reborn Doll, it's called, and this is a real thing. This has popped up actually in other shows too, and even like Dr. Phil did a bit about it, about 8 years ago or something. And it's basically a robotic, sort of like animatronic type of doll that serves several different purposes, but one of them is, you know, people who lose their child or whatever, or suffering from this depression after the loss of the child. It can sort of help them cope. And so in this episode, or in this show, the lead character is going back to work, Dorothy, and hires a nanny to sit for this basically fake baby. And she is played by Nell Tiger Free. I don't know her, but she is about 20s. It's like one of her first big gigs, and here she is getting paid basically to watch a doll. And then the husband is played by Toby Kebbell. We've seen him pop up in a bunch of different things. I don't know what I recognized him from, but he was in like Planet of the Apes and a Black Mirror episode that's popular. He was in Kong Skull Island, so it's like stuff I've seen. And he plays the husband. He does a great job here. His name is Sean, and he basically tells the nanny Leanne right away, like, hey, just so you know, like, this baby's not real, like, so you can basically, once Dorothy goes to work, you can just spend the day in the city, hang out with your friends, like, whatever. She also moved here from out of town, so she doesn't really know anybody. And essentially, at the end of the very first episode, I hate giving spoilers on the show, so I guess, well, you know what, I'm gonna say it, so I'm gonna say it. It's a spoiler for the end of the first episode, but basically, through something, the baby exists again. The reborn doll either comes to life. We don't quite know yet exactly what's going on, but in the end of the first episode, we hear the quote-unquote reborn doll crying and moving and being a real baby. So I guess maybe it's not like a robotic or animatronic baby. I guess it's just like a plastic baby that feels like a real baby, but it doesn't actually make noise. Because when the baby started crying was when Sean was like, wait, what the hell's going on? So that's the only spoiler I'll give. Episode 2 I won't really say much about, but that the storyline progresses from there. And then Dorothy's brother, who is played by Rupert Grint, is one of the few people that knows the baby died to begin with, because they decided kind of not to tell a lot of people, because Dorothy was just going really kind of in this big depression about it, and the husband didn't want to make it worse than it was, so they told her brother, the Rupert Grint character, they told her father, but that was really about it. So the fact that now this baby's back to life, it's like, oh well, so many people already thought it was alive. And then all this other stuff starts happening in the second episode that I'm not going to get into. So I'll talk about it from there. But that's the plot of the series. And I don't know if, when we go to season 2, I don't know if it's going to be about a different family. Like, I'm not sure about any of that. I haven't read. But I feel like this could be a one-season, like, contained story. But since it's been renewed for season 2, maybe it's about a different family entirely. I don't know. But there's a lot of weird stuff going on. I really was kind of into this. The acting is good. The girl that is the nanny, and I know I already said her name, but Nell Tiger Free, she reminds me a lot of the gal that M. Night Shyamalan put in Glass and Split. Anya Taylor-Joy, I think is her name. That same sort of like vibe, I would say, like a little bit creepy, similar kind of look. So, I mean, it seems to work for him in these movies. So why not bring it to the TV show? I really liked the vibe of this. I liked the script. I thought it was definitely engaging and mysterious, and like I want to see what happens next. I'm glad I watched the second episode, especially, great cliffhanger on the first episode. But my problem is M. Night Shyamalan, I like a lot of his stuff, but then there's also a lot of other things that he's done that just sort of fall apart. Like Wayward Pines is a good example of that on the TV side. But then even a lot of his movies, like The Village, was great up until the last 20 minutes. And Glass was sort of a mess all the way around. But, if I was just basing it on the first quarter of the movie, maybe I would be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is pretty good. And then it just, really falls apart. So it's tough for me to grade just from 2 episodes of this show because I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if we're going to have a successful M. Night Shyamalan production or not. And he wrote the first episode. He directed the first episode. He didn't write any of them, at least of the first 4 that are listed. The same guy wrote the first 4 episodes, Tony Baskalop. I don't know him, but let's see what else he's done. He's a British writer of TV, and he's written a bunch of things I've never heard of. So, all right. So maybe because Shyamalan's not writing it, maybe it goes well, and it holds intrigue for the whole run of the show. I don't know. So it's hard to sort of grade it just on the first 2 episodes, knowing that it could fall apart at any minute. But from what I've seen so far, I think it's really enjoyable. I'm very excited to see where it goes from here. But because it is that type of show, I don't want to grade it too high out of the gate. So I'm going to leave Servant with a B+. I think it's very good, very intriguing. That may be one I check in with at the end of the run of the show and just be like, okay, yeah, it was, it ended up being this kind of a grade. But for now, I really liked it. You can catch that on Apple TV+. Up next is going to be Harley Quinn. This is an animated adult show, very adult, on the DC Universe app or platform or whatever, which I've never watched anything on. I know a few friends that have this. I do not personally have it. So I did a little finagling to watch the first couple episodes for you. And the people I know that have the DC Universe app love it. They say it's great. A lot of the original stuff is really cool on there. And then it has a great collection of older DC stuff. Movie-wise, I think most people can agree that, Marvel outshines DC, 100 to 1. But I think on the TV side, DC's been doing, a pretty good job. I don't follow any of the shows on the CW anymore. But, I watched The Flash for a while. I watched Supergirl for a while. So, I'm well versed in that kind of stuff. And speaking of Harley Quinn specifically, I liked Suicide Squad more than most. I didn't love it. I think I gave it a B or a B-. But, people hate that movie. I thought it was actually pretty good. And I think Harley Quinn was certainly one of the reasons why, one of the main reasons. And Margot Robbie did an amazing job with her. She is not on board for this, but it's a really great voice cast. So you've got Kaylee Cuoco doing Harley Quinn, which is awesome because now the Big Bang Theory's over. She's obviously, got some time on her hands, and she's actually, her production company is basically doing the show, Yes Norman Productions, along with DC and Warner Brothers. So, she's got her hands really, in this, which I think is awesome. But other than her, you've got Alan Tudyk as the Joker. He does a bunch of different voices on here, as he does, he does a lot of Disney voices, like Duke of Weselton from Frozen and the King Candy and Wreck-It Ralph and a lot of those. So he's always great. He does a great Joker here. But then even down to Lake Bell as Poison Ivy, who I love her. Diedrich Bader from the old Drew Carey show, he plays Batman. And then Jim Rash from Community does the Riddler. And Tony Hale I don't think I've seen yet, but he plays Dr. Psycho apparently. J.B. Smoove is in it. Wanda Sykes is in it. Jason Alexander. So there's a lot of really talented voice people in this show. And I'll admit, I don't watch a lot of the DC animated stuff. I've seen some of the movies recently, like I saw The Killing Joke and some of the more recent stuff. But I remember, the Batman animated series, obviously in the 90s, it was huge. That was on when I was in high school. And, I saw like Mask of the Phantasm. And so I'm not like, all in on the DC stuff, but I've seen enough of it to know, and I've seen certainly enough Batman movies and Joker stories, and to kind of know the basics. I think this is a really fun show. It is very adult, tons of language, a lot of violence. Batman the animated series had a lot of violence, and that played on Fox at 4 in the afternoon or whatever it was. But this is taking that 10 steps further, especially with the language. But everybody's having a lot of fun here, doing a really good job. And basically the plot synopsis is that Harley Quinn finally is leaving the Joker once and for all. Question mark. I mean, she leaves him basically. I mean, again, I saw the first 2 episodes of this. She leaves him kind of at the end of the first episode, beginning of the second episode type of thing, and basically is like, hey, I'm gonna kick everybody's ass now. Like, I'm in charge now. I'm Harley Quinn, and her and Poison Ivy are like good buddies, and are sort of, teaming up, girls unite kind of thing. But I think it's a lot of fun. Everybody's clearly having fun with it. Kaylee Cuoco, I'm really hit or miss on. I used to really like Big Bang Theory when it started, and then it got old very quickly. So about 4 seasons in, I kind of gave up on that. But, I like her sort of as a person, like when I see her on talk shows or whatever. Her acting stuff is sort of hit or miss. Like the movie she did with The Wedding Ringer, I thought was, she was just kind of bad in it and whatever. So when I heard she was going to be Harley Quinn, I was like, I don't know. She certainly screeches a lot. She really uses that high register of her voice. But she's obviously having a lot of fun. It sounds like everybody in the recording studio is having a lot of fun with what's going on here. The main problem I have with it is that it's all too gratuitous. Like the language is like every other sentence is like an F-bomb or a, suck my D, or whatever. It's like, we get it, you're being edgy, you're being hip, but it's like that to me, I don't know. I don't mind a lot of cursing, but when it replaces like actual good writing, then I have a problem. And in that respect, like I would say, all the humor doesn't quite land, but a lot of it does. In the second episode, they go to a bar mitzvah to kind of, shake things up with the Joker and his crew, and the little Jewish boys are like all hitting on Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, and it's fun, if not a little bit, I don't know, creepy, I guess, but it's fun, and it's all tongue in cheek. The show clearly knows what it is. I mean, of a lot of the shows I see, certainly in their first episode or 2, they don't really have their footing yet, aren't really sure where they're going to go with it. This show knows what it is, it knows what it wants to be, and it's going at it full force. So I have to give it points for that, absolutely. Not having DC Universe, I probably won't keep up with it, but it's something that if they release like a DVD of, that I could buy for like 10 or 15 bucks, I would probably buy it. I really enjoyed it. I think the cursing is way too much. I think it's, we get it. Ooh, you're on DC Universe, not, Fox Kids. But like really, it's basically kind of the Batman the Animated Series, a little more violent, a little more sexualized, but really the only thing that sets it apart is all the rampant cursing. But I did enjoy it, and I think everybody's having a blast doing it. So I give Harley Quinn on DC Universe a B+. And that's an every week kind of thing. With these streaming platforms, I never know, like, oh, do they put them up all at once or once a week or whatever. This seems to be a once a week kind of show. I don't know. I think it says how many episodes there's going to be total. Maybe it does not. I don't know. Okay, 13 episodes on the original season. So, Yeah, so we can look forward to this, for the next like 2 months, basically 2 or 3 months. So up next, we have two dysfunctional family holiday shows. Merry Happy Whatever is on Netflix, and as Netflix does, you can stream all the episodes right now. That stars Dennis Quaid. And then you've got the Moodys over on Fox, which is conceived as a 6-part miniseries, and actually has just wrapped up. It's a half-hour show, but they ran 2 episodes per night, and they just wrapped up the third night yesterday. So, so you can probably see all of those episodes on like Hulu or Fox Now, if you have that app. So really, you can see all episodes of both of these shows. But again, I watched the first 2 of each, and I'll get to the movies, I guess, later. But I'm not sure if it's going to remain just a miniseries or if they're going to make it a full-blown series, maybe somewhere down the line. But let's start with Merry Happy Whatever. It's Dennis Quaid in a multi-camera, like laugh track type sitcom, which Netflix has dabbled with. It's certainly not their bread and butter, but they had great success with One Day at a Time. They had great success with The Ranch too, which I think is a terrible show, but it ran for 3 or 4 years. And then the Kathy Bates one, Disjointed, where she's the marijuana dispensary owner or whatever. That was studio audience or laugh track as well. So I think that's and Fuller House, I guess, obviously, since it was a reboot of the original. But I think everything else on Netflix is single camera comedy, no laugh track, no studio audience, any of that. I don't find it jarring necessarily, but I find it jarring actually when there's a lot of to go back to the cursing thing. And listen, I curse all the time in my regular life, so I'm not like a prude about that. I don't curse on the channel because I want everybody to be able to watch my channel. But the worst this show said was bastard. And there was a scene where they said butt a few times, but they chose to say butt over ass. So okay, that's good. But like when I started watching The Ranch and they were just like dropping F-bombs, I was just like, this is so weird, like to have a laugh track and then, all the cursing. But so this revolves around the Quinn family in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, actually, which is right near me. But essentially the plot is Bridget Mendler and Brent Morin play a couple. She plays the daughter of Dennis Quaid, and then he plays the boyfriend who's just meeting the family for the first time. This is a super tight-knit family, close. And, typical, overbearing father, and we got to do everything my way, and this and that. Typical big family. They have, a bunch of different kids. Ashley Tisdale plays one of the daughters, and I think they have four kids or 5 kids total, something like that. 4 kids, I think. But very close knit family, and they don't like the Brent Morin character Matt because he's a struggling musician and he's from L.A. and they want their daughter to move back home and he wants to marry her and this and that. It's all very typical, and in fact, it's funny that I watched both of these shows back to back. Because it's like, I don't know, there's so many just standard things in Christmas movies and shows. I actually just saw a meme today that was something like, what has 15 actors, 2 writers and 1 plot, 632 Hallmark movies. I feel there's a lot of tropes are hit in both of these shows. I will sort of review them separately, but you'll see a lot of the same themes come up in the Dennis Leary show, the Moodys. But basically, one of the kids is about to get divorced, and the other one is having marital issues, and this girl's bringing her boyfriend home that the family hates, and all this. It's about as standard as you can get. I mean, it's they're taking sort of hackneyed plot lines from TV shows, 30, 40, 50 years ago. The jokes are okay. I mean, there's some good ones. Ashley Tisdale's probably the funniest one on here, at least, her character is. But she has so much, experience doing the Disney stuff that, she plays it very similarly to that, which is like, a little bit over the top. And I mean, the whole show is kind of like that. Like, I don't know what happened to Dennis Quaid, but like the last couple movies he did were terrible. And, he's at the stage in his career where I don't think Hollywood knows quite what to do with him. Because he's not really like a leading, romantic lead anymore. And, he's trying his hand a little bit at like action stuff, and that's not really working. Being the patriarch of this family wasn't really working for me either. Like, it's all so generic. Now, Brent Morin came from Undateable, which I thought was an okay show. I never got around to watching it when they did like the live season. But I mean, I find him likable. He has some okay lines and there's okay jokes. But nothing about this show stands out. Nothing about this show is like, oh, I really want to see what happens with these characters. The mother of the family has passed away a couple of years ago, so the Dennis Quaid character sort of likes this nurse at the hospital, and there's kind of a back and forth between the two of them, but she doesn't know it, and oh well, Brent Morin's character, oh hey, like I know how I can get in good with Dennis Quaid, like I'll sort of play matchmaker with him and the nurse at the hospital. It's like everything's recycled, everything's generic. I don't know. I mean, I did laugh a few times. I can't deny that, but they weren't like, a lot of it was like sort of, I don't know, not forced laughter, but just like, sort of like, okay, like that's a good line, but is it because it was, delivered well by Ashley Tisdale? I don't know. She plays sort of the domineering sister of like, let's get up and go, sing these carols, you're pitchy, I don't want you singing in my carols, like that kind of stuff, but it's all very standard. So I can't give it a high grade. It's certainly a below average grade, but I struggled with this one. I did, because I did laugh a few times, and I don't think it's the worst thing. But it's just also very standard and generic. So I leave Mary Happy Whatever with a C-. Now I will say that it hasn't been renewed or canceled for a season 2, but the producers and the creators have said like they sort of envision them doing different seasons with different holidays as the backdrop, but I'm guessing with the same family. So if it does get renewed for a season 2, it might be Valentine's Day or Easter, or something like that. Or maybe Thanksgiving, if they release it again, around this time next year. But yeah, they say it's predicted potential anthology series with future seasons possibly exploring other holidays. But to me, an anthology series says not the same cast. So, maybe it'll wrap up with this cast and then, do another holiday with a different cast. I don't know. But anyway, enough said about that. So let's get to the Moodys. This is similar in tone because it's about a dysfunctional family at Christmas with several children. Here, the mom is alive and played by Elizabeth Perkins, who I love, from Weeds. And Dennis Leary heads up the family. Typically really like him as well. And it's based on A Moody Christmas, which was an Australian miniseries that turned into the Moodys TV show in Australia for a couple years. And that's kind of why I think like there's potential here for maybe more than just the 6-episode miniseries. They may decide to do some kind of extended show. The ratings for it were pretty good. I mean, it was up from Almost Family, which is the show that is usually in that time slot this season, which is for me one of the worst shows of the season. So I'm glad this improved on that because it's definitely a better show. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I sort of, if Fox sees good ratings here, they may want to continue the storyline with this family, just like the Australian show did. So, I don't know. But for now, we have these 6 episodes in a miniseries. And again, they've all aired as of last night. So you can watch all of them, on Hulu or wherever you watch your Fox shows. But so this is about the Moody family, obviously, and basically, again, dysfunctional. What's his face is in it from How to Train Your Dragon, who I love. Jay Baruchel, he plays one of the kids who's like, he's security guard at like an ice rink or something, and messes up and gets fired, and then there's some relationship stuff going on with one of the other kids, and it's funny. It's just like I said about the Hallmark joke. Like it's a lot of the similar themes here that we just talked about in Merry Happy Whatever. So I don't even need to really go too far into it. It's not a studio audience show, though. It is a single camera comedy, which is pretty standard these days. I didn't really recognize anybody else other than those three: Dennis Leary, Elizabeth Perkins, and Jay Baruchel. But yeah, I mean it's funny in parts. It definitely hits some moments. I love Dennis Leary pretty much in everything. I didn't see that. Was it like Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll or something that only lasted like a season? I didn't watch that, but I love Rescue Me, and he's also in one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time, which is The Ref. Fantastic movie. If you've never seen it, it's him, Kevin Spacey, which whatever, and the mom is Judy Davis, and he plays like a burglar, and then when family starts coming, he pretends like he's their marriage counselor. Fantastic movie, one of my favorites around the holidays. So, he's already got that Christmas, kind of vibe going from that. But I really, I like his stand-up. I like Dennis Leary. I think he's a talented dude. If anything holds this show together, it's him. But the scenarios are pretty much the same. I mean, the feeling is a little bit different. It's certainly not as generic. I mean, Merry Happy Whatever is so sitcom-y, and it's set up joke, ha ha ha, and that can work sometimes. Look, I think Man with the Plan on CBS with Matt LeBlanc is very standard sitcom. Like, you've seen it 100 times, but I still like it. It still makes me laugh because Matt LeBlanc makes it work. Dennis Quaid not so much on Merry Happy Whatever. But Dennis Leary, is what elevates this above average kind of stock, but not by that much. I mean, it's still got a lot of the same beats, and I can't grade it too high because of that. And I'm not necessarily down on like Christmas programming. Like it's fine, but these two shows are just so similar in like the themes they're exploring. That it's a matter of like which one do I think is done better, and I guess it's the Moodys because it is definitely a little more original, and I think the cast gels a little bit better as well. So I leave the Moodys with a C+. It's still kind of in that average range, but maybe a little bit above, and that's thanks to Leary, I would say. And I mean, Elizabeth Perkins is good too. Not that they necessarily give her a ton to do here, but it is what it is. But again, the Moodys is like day by day. There's 6 episodes. It starts on I think, December 19th or something, and goes or maybe the 20th, and then goes all the way up to episode 6 is December 25th, Christmas Day. So I saw the first 2 days like leading into everything. But again, like, we're meeting a new member of the, this is my new girlfriend, it's like, oh, when Merry Happy Whatever, we met the new boyfriend, and so a lot of the same kind of themes. So let's move on to 4 Weddings and a Funeral. This is not a brand new show, but it premiered over the summer, about a month before I started doing this podcast, or at least the TV reviews episodes I do. Or maybe it started even before that. July 31st, so about a month and a half before I started doing the show. So I never got to review it, but I love Mindy Kaling. So I was like, okay, she's executive producing this. She's bringing the idea of the film to the TV, and it's listed as a miniseries. So again, I usually take that to mean this is only going to be on one season anyway. It's 8 episodes, and basically, like, half the episodes are going to focus on a wedding or a funeral, and then, I guess the other episodes are sort of just filler between. So, again, here I watched the first 2. And the cast is mostly unknowns. I mean, I didn't really recognize any of these names, but, Nathalie Emmanuel, Nikesh Patel, Rebecca Rittenhouse, John Reynolds, Brandon Michael Smith, Zoe Boyle. These are not your everyday names. I've seen a couple of them like pop up in different things previously, but for the most part, it's a new cast. But it follows, 4 friends from, I guess, high school. I mean, I don't know if it says specifically high school or college, but I guess high school, reunite for, a big wedding, but some stuff happens in the first episode at the altar, and maybe certain people are in love with other people, and this and that, and, again, I don't want to give spoilers, but it's about, relationships and, old friends coming together and all of this. I've only seen the movie twice, and not like when it came out either. I've seen it both times probably in the last 6 or 7 years. But certainly one of the great rom-coms. I mean, I can see why it gets all the love it does. I never really quite got the whole Andie MacDowell thing. She's okay, but Hugh Grant is great in the movie, of course, and a lot of the other people. But with Mindy Kaling, producing this and bringing it to the small screen, I thought I got to watch this and see how it holds up to the movie and how I think it does overall. All the episodes are up now on Hulu. They put like the first, I think, 4 up on opening day, and then it was 1 a week until it was done on September 11th. So all of them are up now. This was really a mixed bag for me. It goes sort of for some like rom-com setup situations. Some of them pay off, some of them don't. Some of the cast members have chemistry, some don't. One of my big problems was that the 4 like sort of main characters are supposed to be these like lifelong friends, and they just, to me, don't have a lot of chemistry with each other. They, I think the people with the most chemistry are sort of people from the outside, people that that they didn't know from back in the day. So, I have to, that's like a huge complaint for me. These characters have to be believable as lifelong friends. Like a show on Netflix they did recently, or I guess it's been a few years now, but the one with, was it Jason Bateman? No, it was Fred Savage. And Keegan-Michael Key was in it, and Colby Smulders. It was called something, was it called The Reunion or something? I forget. Friends from College, it was called. And I thought it was okay. I went through about 4 episodes of it, and it was okay. But the one thing I believed about the show was that these were all friends from way back. They all had great chemistry together. It was like you could tell, okay, these guys have been friends for 20 years. The guys in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, the guys and gals in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, I can't say that about. I didn't feel that way. And because I don't know these actors really, I don't know if it's that they're not the best actors or if just the characters needed a little work in the writing department. It's hard to tell. But that being said, I mean, I think it's, as a romantic comedy, I think it works on certain levels. Again, a lot of the similar beats that we've seen 100 times before are present, but, you'll get that in a rom-com. There aren't that much, there's not that much different you can do with, the typical, like, falling in love story. But, it's certainly a far cry from the movie, but, it was never probably going to be the movie. So, I liked it. I don't know if I'll continue with the other 6 episodes. I'm not sure, but a lot of the things that were going on, though we've seen them before, I think some of them were done in clever ways, or, there were some good jokes or whatever. But the chemistry is definitely holding it back, and just the standard nature of all of it. Really, it's a very standard show, which is weird because I expect different from Mindy Kaling. I don't necessarily want to say better, but I do expect better. So I guess I'll say. I mean, the Mindy Project is brilliant. In fact, I'm coming up with my top 10 comedies and top 10 dramas of the decade, and I'm certainly considering putting the Mindy Project on there. I thought that was a great show. I thought she was brilliant on The Office. I loved her book. I thought that was very funny. So the fact that this is so standard is a little disappointing for me, but it's got the Four Weddings and a Funeral name on it, which is like, you know, top of the rom-com pyramid of the last, say, 20, 30 years, at least one of them. So was it ever going to hold up to that level? No, it wasn't, I don't think, but could it have been a lot better than this? I think probably with better casting. I can appreciate that maybe her and the production team wanted to reach out to some unfamiliar faces and get some new people in the spotlight, but they just didn't have the chemistry for me. And again, I don't know if that was the acting or the writing of the characters, but that part didn't really work. So I leave Four Weddings and a Funeral with a C. I think it was okay. But yeah, I don't know. I probably will not watch the remaining 6 episodes unless I just get real bored and curious one of these days. But yeah, it's unfortunate because I expected more. But that's going to do it for the show this week. I like that I'm sort of able to dive into some older shows from like the months preceding me doing this, because I still want to watch The Boys on Amazon. There's a couple Netflix shows that I haven't gotten to see. Dead Like Me is one of them, or Dead to Me, or whatever the Christina Applegate one is. So maybe I'll try one of those a week until the end of the year. But other than that, we'll be back next week with another episode and some more news. And I guess that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.